How do you get a girl obsessed with you? Some of you are probably wondering, how do I just get a girl to like me? And in this video, I'll show you how to do that by using the 5 hook points framework. In this video, you will learn 1, how I go up to girls that I don't know and reach that social hook point, have a genuine connection, how I create attraction from that interaction. You'll learn how I get that number. You will learn how I get to the sexual hook point when I'm at clubs, bars, or nighttime events. I will also teach you how I start the falling in love process. You'll learn a little bit about time bridging and how to text properly to bridge that time you have between the time you meet her versus the first date and the second date. Before I dive into the specifics, let me give you the framework. There are 5 hook points in every dating scenario when it comes to a woman's experience of the courtship process. The social hook point. When you go talk to a girl or when you meet a girl for the first time, she doesn't know who you are. And as men, we're very visual and we kind of make decisions just based on visuals. We can make that decision in about 4 seconds. But as women, even though they say they're visual, it's usually 60-40 or sometimes more, especially as they get older. So let's assume that it's 50-50, 50% visual and 50% behavior cues, right? And there's evolutionary reasons for that, which you can find in another video. That means that imagine if you were a girl, imagine that you're looking at a girl and she looks beautiful. She's exactly your type, whatever your type is. She's shapely, smells nice, has great eyes, beautiful face, beautiful body. She's walking towards you, right? And you're like, man, this girl looks hot. And as you start talking to her, I want you to imagine this. As you start talking to her and everything she says is like, that's not what I was expecting. I want you to imagine her changing. Her body starts getting bigger or smaller, whatever your type is. Her face starts getting a little bit morphed. Then she becomes like this monster by the end of the 10-minute conversation. Okay, how would you feel? Like, what happened to you? I thought you were hot. That's how women feel when an okay looking guy comes up to them and starts talking and he doesn't know game. He doesn't know how to talk to women. It sucks. Because it requires more time for a woman to assess a man's value. It's more difficult for them. They need more time. Okay, this is their timeline that we're respecting here. So this framework is built around her timeline. And by the way, just as a tangent, this is why pre-selection is so powerful for women. If you see a girl with like 4 or 5 guys at the bar, you don't necessarily think that she's really hot. You just think she's hot because of her physical attributes. But if you see a guy with 4 women at the bar, women find that really attractive. Why? Because it takes her so long to assess the mating value of a man, her work is already done for her when other women select him. Therefore, the trigger of pre-selection is one of the strongest triggers in attraction and dating. That's basically, it's like a cheat code for your value, okay? I can talk about how to hack this in another video, and we've done it. We had some pretty funny situations where we tested this, but let's get back to the 5 hook points framework. So the social hook point is when you're talking to her and she reaches a point where she's like, this person seems interesting, I'm down to have a conversation. Then you reach the second hook point, which is a sexual hook point. Now, men, we only have one sexual hook point, right? We're like light switches, on, off, would sleep with, wouldn't sleep with. But women have 2. The first one is, I'm not opposed to the idea of sleeping with him, okay? Because you'll know if you have girlfriends, she's either gonna be like, I'm never going to sleep with him, or I'm open to the idea of sleeping with him. She makes that decision pretty fast, actually. The first sexual hook point is, I'm not opposed to the idea of sleeping with him. I'm not there yet, but it's a possibility. The second sexual hook point is when there's arousal and she's like, I'm sexually attracted to him. I'm actually down if things go well. Okay, there's 2 hook points for her. For men, there's only 1. That takes you to the 4th hook point, which is you've dated for a little bit, maybe a few weeks, for some people, maybe 2 or 3 dates. And you're like, I kind of like this person. Maybe we should be in a relationship. Then you kind of decide, okay, do we want to date each other exclusively? What's the situation? And then you have the talk so you can, match up your expectations. And then you have the falling in love hook point. And that can start pretty soon after the relationship if you know what you're doing. She's like, I'm starting to fall in love with you. There's a 6th hook point where she becomes like obsessively addicted to you, but I don't want to talk about that because it's too advanced, and also like some people might misuse it to create love slaves. So let's not talk about that today. So how do I reach the social hook point? The first thing I did was just practice over and over again to get over the anxiety of talking to people I don't know. My default opener, those of you who watch my TikToks know, is, hey, you looked interesting. and I wanted to meet you. Very simple opener. Okay. Once I have her attention, there's a moment where what we call calibration, right? Which is in an advanced stage, you're basically calibrating for the other person's response. If they're walking really fast when I'm saying that, I have to move quickly. If she's like stops completely and like, oh, okay, what are you gonna say next? I'm gonna take a little more time, right? For example, in New York, if the girl's walking from block to block, I'll say, hey, you looked interesting and I wanted to meet you. Don't worry, I'm going this way as well. Or like, my friend's waiting back there, but I'll walk a block with you. If it gets weird, I'll leave, right? So I throw in what we call like a false time constraint based on calibration. If I'm there, I'm like, hey, you looked interesting and I wanted to meet you. Let's say we're at a mall and she stops completely and she's like, oh, okay. Then I know I have a little more time. I don't need to throw in like, oh, I have to go soon, okay? The reason false time constraints work is because whenever someone gets approached, they're always wondering, what does this person want? And if it gets awkward, will they leave? So you want to reassure those possible objections before they happen. So let's assume that this girl's at a bar, right? And I'm like, hey, you looked interesting and I wanted to meet you. What I usually say next, because I'm a little bit more experienced, is I'll do a cold read on her. Like, you look like you're from Eastern Europe, or like you look like you work in marketing. Or you look like the type of girl that would never, even if you met a guy you liked, you would never ever leave your friends for him. Is that right? So this is what we call a cold read. Sometimes if I have something going on in my life, I'll tell the story. I'll be like, you looked interesting and I wanted to meet you. It's my first time in Vegas, and what's funny is life off the strip. I had no idea once I drove around how different it is. Do you live here or are you visiting? Okay, so I tell a little bit of my story and then I get her input on my story. Sometimes when I was starting out, I didn't have the style, I didn't have the sub communications, I didn't have my nonverbal game down, so I had to give a reason. Otherwise, the girl would just assume low value and walk away. So sometimes in the beginning, I would give a reason. So I'll say, you looked interesting and I wanted to meet you. I have this goal. And by the way, I'm going to leave in like a minute. But while I'm here, I have this goal this month to just talk to 2 people that I thought might be interesting as part of my self-development. Okay, so I'm giving her a very valid reason for why I'm talking to her. And I'm saying it's for self-improvement. And very few people will put you down for that, okay? It's like, okay, he's at least trying to improve himself. And then usually I'll go into a routine about my own story. And I'll seek that connection through my story. That's how I started in the beginning. Now, because I have more value now, like passive value, that's like value that's conveyed non-verbally through my style, through my sub-communications, I don't need to do that routine, those sequence anymore. I just cold read or I start flirting with her right away because that value is assumed. If the girl gives me a hard time, which very rarely happens now, it depends on the girl, but I haven't had it happen in a while. She'll be like, are you talking to all the girls here? I'll be like, no, just the pretty ones. Or like, yeah, it's like, I've talked to 100 girls today. You're 101. Congratulations. Your prize? Me with my shirt off. Just kidding. So there's a little bit of flirting going on. I'm doing a little bit of cold read. At some point, at this point, it just flows, right? You don't need the routine stack. In the beginning, I was like, I need to memorize a script. Like if she says this, then I do this. If she says X, then deliver Y. It's very robotic in the beginning. Later on, I realized like once you reach the social hook point where she's like, okay, this guy seems interesting, then you can just free flow. Okay. When I'm free flowing, I throw in one of the 36 questions that Dr. Arthur Aaron talks about that creates like the falling in love process. You can find more about this on my blog, highintegrityskills.com/blog. You'll know when you reach the social hook point because she'll be standing there. If the girl's walking, she'll stop walking. If the girl's at a bar, she'll turn her body towards you. Basically, they're giving you their full attention and she's like, okay, this guy might be interesting. What are you about? I'm actually curious about you now. That's when you reach the social hook point. From there, I'll talk to her for about, depends on the situation, sometimes 10 minutes, sometimes if I really enjoy talking to her, up to 30 minutes, sometimes an hour, right? But usually if I'm in field and I'm just helping out students, I'll usually end it at about 10 to 15 minutes where I have some idea of who she is. I have a solid number, but I would like to see her again and get to know her more. And by the way I ask for the number is just, let's keep in touch and see how it goes. I'm not really looking for the number close. I'm looking for the girl close. In other words, it's like, what's my interaction with her? The number is a sub result of proper game. Sometimes I'll have an Insta date or I get along so well with a girl at a bar that I'm just like, I don't mind spending another hour, 2 hours with you. That's rare, but it does happen. But usually if I'm in field, I'm demoing for clients, I have to move on to prove to them that this is a repeatable process, right? So I'll talk to like 5 or 6 girls within an hour, let's say. How do you reach the sexual hook point? So sexual hook point, sometimes if you have good style, you can reach it in like the first minute. But if you don't have good style, it may take you up to 20, 30 minutes, sometimes even an hour to reach that point where she's like, I believe this guy, he's congruent and he stimulates me in some way. I'm like, basically she's just, in her mind, it's like your behavior patterns are so consistent and you repeated it over and over again that she's like, this guy's sex worthy. He's a cool guy. Sex worthiness, I was pondering this for a long time because I used to read things about the secret society and how all these guys got sex. And what I realized is that sex worthiness for women, when they assess a dude, really has a lot to do with his nonverbal communication, how grounded he is. And that's about 60%. Then about 40% of it is how good his verbal game is, his conversation game. And then the congruency between the verbal, like the surface level, if you think about it as an iceberg, the surface level game and the nonverbal game, that's how you trigger sex worthiness. And once you can trigger sex worthiness, where most women find you sexually attractive, that's when the game starts changing a lot for you. Sexual hook point, there's plenty of routines in my other videos and my products because they take so long to explain. But I started out with routines and now I go more by improv and I bring in routines to spice things up if I need to. Overall, my game is very natural with a organized process. In the beginning, it was very like line by line, script by script. Now it's more like a wave almost. It takes about 3 to 7 hours for a girl to be like, I'm okay sleeping. I will want to sleep with this guy. It usually takes about that amount of time. For guys, it's like, it's funny. Some guys, it actually takes us a long time, but on average about an hour. But for women, it takes about 3 to 7 hours to be okay sleeping with someone that they just met. This is just data that I've seen in field over and over again. If you just want to have sex, attraction and comfort is enough. Like proper attraction and comfort is good. You can just flirt and banter and keep it surface level and make her feel comfortable and you're good. If you're a minority, if you want to get girls to start falling in love with you, you need what we call connection triggers. And I talk about this in another video. But basically, connection triggers when a girl feels like a deep understanding, that you really understand her reason, her why, and she understands your reason and why. And there's certain conversational tactics to achieve this. Comfort is when she feels non-threatened, that you're attentive to her, that you're safe, that you are empathetic to her, that she feels comfortable around you. Like, this guy's not a threat. He's not going to do something weird. He's not going to emotionally betray me. He's not going to do something that betrays everything that he's shown me so far, right? That's like the emotional congruency there. Attraction is really sexual chemistry, vibe, that sexual tension, that spark, right? That you feel towards someone that you're sexually attracted to. And there's ways to replicate that as well, especially through your style and your nonverbals. Once you have these things down, then you can get to, 1, 2, pretty consistently here. Then the question becomes like, how do I get into a relationship, or which relationship is better for me? And that's what I call with my clients a high quality problem. Most guys are just so thankful that a hot girl likes them and he'll get into a relationship with her right away. But I would like my clients, I would like you to develop the skills where there's multiple girls that want to be in a relationship with you, and you get to really pick the best one for you. And because you picked the best one for you, you're also the best choice for her too, because you properly evaluated your compatibility. And you didn't make a choice out of scarcity. Make sense? So these are the 5 social hook points to get a girl interested in you, to get a girl obsessed with you. Obsession really comes in if you can do these well. Sexual obsession, and then eventually falling in love, like really, really like attached, almost clingy obsession. Especially if she's not like, she hasn't experienced that before. I'm going to talk more about the falling in love process next time. But I hope in this video I gave you some tips as to how to start the conversation, what these hook points are and how to look for them, and how to move them forward to the next step. Okay. If you want specifics and more help, check out the description. There are links to my products. First Day Formula, I think right now it's only $77. Gives you all the lines Everything you need to get to the hook point and the sexual hook point. Okay, that's like where the game is played to get your first date. Seduce with style, just get you that attraction, sexual attraction right off the bat, so you don't have to work as hard. In the first date formula, I discuss step by step, specifically the blueprint for Asian guys, where we have to use connection triggers. We have to get over that unconscious social bias in the beginning. So these steps are the same for us, but to reach these hook points, we need to do different things. So that's why normal dating advice doesn't really work for us, okay? All of these products, I spent months creating them. They're really, really good. And if they can help you on your journey, check out the links below. I'll see you in the next one.